Hello guys, I'm Tom, and today we're diving into the concept of horror Spider-Man. A new and chilling short film has burst onto the independent horror scene, completely shaking the way we perceive the legendary Spider-Man. This reinterpretation doesn't aim to honor the hero. It seeks to tear him apart, distort him, and make him utterly unrecognizable before our eyes. The result is grotesque, visceral, and profoundly disturbing. A version that crawls out of the mold of the classic superhero to plunge into the territory of body horror, where the body and mind stop being allies and turn into a battlefield. The mind behind this nightmare is Andrew Shun, known online by the alias Locust Garden. He's an independent filmmaker who had already made waves with his unsettling short about a twisted, almost nightmarish version of Fiona, the princess from Shrek. But this time, Shun pushes his vision much further. With this new work, he dares to reimagine Peter Parker not as a symbol of hope, but as a dark reflection of our deepest anxieties. Here, the Spider-Man isn't a hero. He's a tragic mutation, a monster embodying the terror of losing control over who we are. From its opening moments, the short film makes it clear that there's no room for heroism. What we see is a reinterpretation of the myth from its very roots, stripped of glamour, irony, or morality. Shun transforms the classic Spider-Bite story into a metaphor for existential horror, where power isn't a gift, but a curse. After being bitten by a genetically modified or radioactive, depending on the myth, spider, Peter Parker doesn't develop amazing abilities. Instead, he suffers a degenerative mutation that slowly devours his body, mind, and humanity. Shun draws directly from the darkest sources of transformation cinema. There are clear echoes of David Cronenberg's The Fly, with its tangible fear of decaying flesh, as well as of Stan Winston's Earth versus the Spider, where metamorphosis becomes a tragedy impossible to stop. Both influences merge in this work to create a story that terrifies not just through its imagery, but through the questions it leaves hanging. What happens when your own body stops obeying you? What's left of you when you're no longer human? Despite its modest resources, the short stands out for its exquisite attention to detail. The practical effects are astonishingly realistic, and the use of sound, that constant dripping, that subtle buzzing that seems to come from within the protagonist's body, builds unbearable tension. Every texture, every frame, every silence serves a purpose. Shun uses a dense, sticky cinematography filled with breathing shadows to make us feel trapped alongside the character. Nothing feels random. Every frame is designed to disturb, to make us look, and at the same time, wish we could look away. That's why I decided to analyze it in depth. Not only to understand this twisted reinvention of Spider-Man, but also to decipher its hidden symbols, its comic book references, and its connections to darker versions of the character that mainstream audiences rarely see. In this video, we'll first explore the full story of the short film, and then dive into its deeper layers, the nods, the metaphors, and the echoes that link this nightmare to the long tradition of biological and psychological horror in the genre. It all begins with a familiar scene. Peter Parker on a school field trip to a lab experimenting on genetically altered spiders. It's a direct nod to Sam Raimi's version, with that same air of inevitable destiny floating in the atmosphere. But here, from the very first minute, the tone is completely different. The camera trembles, the colors distort, and the entire environment is drenched in discomfort. When the spider escapes and bites Peter's hand, we don't feel curiosity. We feel panic. This moment doesn't celebrate the birth of a hero, but the beginning of a nightmare. After the bite, a rapid montage hurls fragmented images at us. Peter's pulse racing, his vision blurring, flashes of torn flesh beneath his skin. Then darkness. When the light returns, everything has changed. That same night, as he walks alone down the street, Peter feels a burning pain spreading through his arm. The scene is shot with raw, almost documentary realism. Suddenly, a car hits him. The passengers, instead of helping, argue over whether to rob him. But when Peter tries to call for help, a thick substance bursts from his hand, a corrosive web that melts one of them's skin in seconds. What follows is a disturbing, brutal, and tragic sequence. Horrified by what he's done, Peter stumbles away toward home. He locks himself in the bathroom. The camera stays close as he tries to clean himself, but the bleeding won't stop. His hands shake. When he removes the towel, he discovers that the fabric has fused to his skin. His flesh seems to absorb it, to integrate it. His breathing quickens. From the other side of the door, Aunt May's warm voice asks if he's all right, unaware of the nightmare unfolding within. But Peter can't answer. He just stares as his reflection in the mirror begins to distort. Amid his terror, a new impulse takes over. He realizes he can cling to walls. Fascinated, he tests it. He climbs, slips, climbs again. The viewer feels the mix of pain, curiosity, and awe. For a fleeting moment, the film pauses to show something almost poetic. A young man unknowingly ascending toward the impossible. But that freedom lasts only seconds. When Peter returns to his room, the true horror begins. An unbearable pain pierces his abdomen. He doubles over, trembles, and the camera spins with him, trapping us in his spiral of suffering. What follows is a masterful transformation sequence. Vomiting, twisting bones, tearing skin, and increasingly inhuman breathing. There's no music, only the wet sounds of metamorphosis. What was once a teenager full of dreams becomes, before our eyes, an arachnid creature. The short doesn't just reimagine Spider-Man. It strips him of all romanticism, symbolically dismantling him. Peter Parker is no longer the boy chosen by destiny, but a victim of chance, of scientific error, and of biological horror. The story becomes a parable about the price of power, the disintegration of identity, and the total loss of control. As if Corey Rosen himself were telling a modern horror fable, Shin reminds us that behind every gift lies a sacrifice. And sometimes, just sometimes, that sacrifice is far too great to remain human. Shortly after the first symptoms appear, something even more unsettling begins to happen. Peter wakes up feeling a sharp, stabbing pain in his jaw. The discomfort intensifies with every passing second. At first, he assumes it's just a toothache, maybe a result of stress or from the accident, but soon he notices something that freezes him in place. One of his teeth is loose. He touches it with his tongue, disbelieving. He gets up, stumbles over his desk, and rushes to the bathroom mirror. Under the yellowish light, his reflection looks sick. Pale skin, sunken eyes, sweat trickling down his temples. He examines himself closely, and when he opens his mouth, his worst fear is confirmed. A tooth has fallen out. He holds it between his trembling fingers, as if he can't believe it's his. Then he feels another one. He wiggles it with his finger, and it comes loose. Without thinking, he yanks it out. Blood gushes violently, painting his hands, and the sink a bright, vivid red. The sound of water dripping mixes with his ragged breathing. Panic takes over. Peter tries to stop the bleeding, but the pain is unbearable. He staggers, leaning against the wall. The camera shakes along with him. His body, weak and feverish, doesn't respond. His vision blurs. With his face drenched in sweat and tears, he collapses onto his bedroom floor, gasping, trembling, until exhaustion pulls him into unconsciousness. The next morning arrives shrouded in an artificial silence. Peter opens his eyes, dazed, sunlight filtering through the window. His whole body aches. He looks at his hands. The skin has a grayish tone, as if life itself were leaving him. Forcing himself to stand, he dresses clumsily and decides to continue with his day, trying to convince himself that it was all just a nightmare. but his body no longer belongs to him. At school, he sits at his desk, barely able to keep his eyes open. His head feels heavy. The teacher's words sound distant, unreal. Fatigue consumes him. His eyelids close. The world fades away. "Mr. Parker," the teacher's stern voice cuts through the room. "Are you planning to sleep through my entire class?" No response. Peter remains motionless, his head resting on his arms. Then one of his classmates, a blonde girl, likely Gwen Stacy, stands up, worried. She walks over and gently shakes him. "Peter, are you okay?" But when he raises his head, horror freezes her in place. Peter's face is pale, almost translucent, with bluish veins running across his cheeks. From his nose and mouth drips a thin line of blood, and from his lower lip falls a thick, whitish substance that glistens under the light, viscous, sticky like liquid webbing. The classroom falls into absolute silence. Everyone stares. Some step back. Gwen covers her mouth to keep from screaming. The teacher rushes over, trying to stay calm. "Parker, breathe," he says, gripping his shoulder. But Peter begins to convulse. He doubles over in pain, clutching his abdomen, letting out a guttural, heartbreaking scream. His body arches, veins bulge, muscles twitch. The students panic. Some run, others pull out their phones, and the classroom descends into chaos. Within minutes, an ambulance arrives. They lift him onto a stretcher, still unconscious, drenched in sweat and blood. Inside the vehicle, the paramedics work frantically. One checks his pulse. Another holds his head. "Easy, kid, you're gonna be all right. Breathe with me." But Peter can barely hear them. His gaze drifts off. His body begins to tremble again. Suddenly, his fingers twitch. His nails darken. The skin on his palms cracks and thick, dark hairs begin to sprout from it, like those of a spider. Then beneath the skin, something moves, something trying to get out. "Hold him down!" one of the paramedics shouts. But it's already too late. Peter screams, a sound that no longer seems human. His body twists, his skin stretches, tears, deforms. A wet, sickening noise fills the ambulance. And then it happens. An arachnid limb bursts through his abdomen from the inside, ripping his shirt and piercing the air. A thin, clawed arm shoots out, dripping with blood. The paramedics barely have time to scream before the creature attacks them. The camera cuts abruptly. Silence. The next scene takes us to the Parker home. The atmosphere is calm, domestic. Uncle Ben sits in the living room, sipping coffee and watching the Daily Bugle news broadcast. On screen, Jonah Jameson's face appears, full of sarcasm and disdain. "A monster," Jameson declares. An arachnid creature attacked an ambulance in Queens. Witnesses claim to have seen a human-like figure crawling on walls. Hero or threat? Well, you already know my answer. Ben frowns, confused, not fully understanding. He sighs, changes the channel, but before he does, the front door bursts open. "Peter!" he calls out, standing up. No reply. Heavy footsteps echo down the hallway. Ben approaches slowly. He calls again. "Peter, is that you? Or was it May who came in?" Silence. Only the faint dripping of something wet. He climbs the stairs, cautiously. Stopping at Peter's bedroom door, he knocks softly. "Can I come in?" From the other side, a broken, desperate voice responds. "Don't come in. Please, don't come in." Ben freezes. He knows something's wrong. He tries to stay calm, speaking gently, with that same paternal tone he always used when Peter was lost or scared. "Son, you don't have to hide. You can trust me. Responsibility, it always starts with accepting yourself." His words trail off when he feels something strange on the doorknob. He touches it. It's wet, sticky. When he lifts his hand, it's covered in blood. Fear paralyzes him. He pushes the door open. Darkness swallows him. The curtains are drawn. The air is thick, almost unbreathable. Something drips from the ceiling. The camera follows as he moves forward, dimly lit by the light seeping in from the hallway. "Peter!" he whispers, voice trembling. Then, from the back of the room, something moves. Something large, hunched, crawling slowly out of the shadows. A wet, uneven breathing fills the silence. "No, please," says a distorted voice. Half human, half animal. Ben steps back, terrified. The creature moves forward, and a shaft of light reveals the impossible. Peter's face deformed, fused with an arachnid structure. Additional eyes bulge from his forehead. Fangs jut out where his teeth once were. His skin quivers, as if something beneath it is still moving. The screen fades to black. Some time later, the front door opens quietly. Aunt May walks in, smiling, carrying grocery bags. "Peter? Ben, are you home?" She calls out in her usual cheerful tone. No answer. She sets the bags on the table, sighs, and glances at the TV, still on. Jonah Jameson continues his monologue with bitter irony. Witnesses report a spider-like figure moving between New York buildings. Some claim it isn't human. Others say it might have been Spider-Man. May frowns, uneasy, and turns off the television. She heads upstairs, calling again. "Peter? Ben?" When she reaches the second floor, something stops her. The air is heavy, filled with a sweet, organic odor. She slowly opens Peter's bedroom door and freezes. Everything is covered in webs. They hang from the ceiling, wrap around the furniture, engulf the bed. Some strands vibrate faintly, as if something had touched them moments ago. The room looks like a nest, a sanctuary of horror. May takes a step forward. The camera closes in on her face, capturing her trembling breath. She brushes aside the sticky threads with her hands, looks down. There's a dark, fresh stain on the floor. Her expression changes, confusion, fear, realization. Then, the silence breaks. From the darkness above, something moves. A pair of eyes gleam in the shadows. And before she can scream, the screen cuts to black. Later on, the short film reaches its boiling point, the most brutal, heartbreaking, and emotionally devastating climax of the entire story. Aunt May arrives home as night falls. Rain beats against the windows with a ritual-like rhythm, while the silence inside the house seems to hide something unnatural. She opens the door slowly. "Ben." "Peter!" Her trembling voice fades into the dark hallways. Everything seems normal at first, but there's something different in the air. A metallic, heavy scent that clings to the throat. She takes a few steps and then she sees it. In the center of the room lies Uncle Ben's lifeless body. Blood pools beneath his torso, reflecting the flickering light of the TV still on. And above him, bent in an impossible position, there is a creature beyond description, feeding with feral hunger. The sound is revolting, a wet echo of tearing flesh and bones crunching between jaws. The camera freezes at the exact moment. May realizes what she's seeing. Her face collapses in seconds, disbelief twisting into pure terror. Her hands shake. Tears fall uncontrollably as a strangled scream blends with the nauseating sound of the creature devouring human flesh. It's a scene that crushes the soul. Then, the short reveals the truth. The camera rises slowly, with unbearable tension, until it finally shows us the abomination's face. There's no doubt left. That creature is Peter Parker, or at least what's left of him. He's no longer the timid, noble young man we once knew. His humanity has evaporated, replaced by a monstrosity that defies all reason. His body, half human and half arachnid, throbs with its own twisted life. The metamorphosis has reached the point of no return. Ben's corpse lies still, eyes open and empty, while Peter, now a grotesque amalgam of flesh and spiderhood, feeds with spasmodic movements, sucking the blood from his uncle the same way a spider drains its prey. The camera, merciless, lingers on every inch of his new form, his skin coated in a glossy, venom-like slime, veins bulging and taut as cables beneath ulcerated, cracked flesh, joints deformed, clicking with insectoid sounds. His face is the very portrait of horror, swollen, warped, nearly unrecognizable. Where a nose once was, there are now open cavities that breathe with a harsh whistle. His jaw is hideously reshaped, splitting horizontally into two bone-like fangs that open and close like a spider's mandibles. Blood stains his face, but the most terrifying part isn't the monstrosity itself. It's what still lingers within it. Amid all the deformities, traces of humanity remain. 6 human eyes, some trembling, others fixed, are scattered chaotically across his head. They blink out of sync, as if each one tries to see the world from a different corner of his fragmented mind. And behind that irregular blinking, something can be felt, a plea, a consciousness trapped inside. Peter still wears his old black hoodie, soaked in blood, a tragic relic of who he used to be, but his body is no longer his own. From his abdomen sprout spider-like limbs, bony and sheathed in a translucent membrane that pulses with his breathing. They move independently, guided by their own instinct, as if his entire organism were a living colony. The transformation is complete. Aunt May, frozen in horror, screams his name. Peter! Peter, no! Her voice echoes desperately through the darkness. The creature stops its feast. It slowly raises its head and looks at her. For an instant, the monster's many eyes lock onto her with something that feels almost like recognition. In that silence, stretched thin like a thread about to snap, we sense that Peter is still in there, that his soul, somehow, remains alive but imprisoned. Then instinct triumphs over reason. The eyes dilate, the jaw opens, and with a sudden leap, the creature lunges at May. The short cuts to black at the moment of impact, leaving only the echo of a scream fading into emptiness. Then comes the final image, poetic and disturbing. A close-up of the monster's face, dimly lit, its 8 eyes wide open, reflecting madness and pain. But one of them, just one, the left one, sheds a tear. A single drop falling slowly, almost in slow motion. In that moment, we understand the full tragedy. Peter Parker is still conscious, trapped inside his own body, forced to witness as instinct devours what remains of his humanity. The nightmare ends, or so we think, because after a few seconds of silence, a post-credits scene appears. A dark, damp alleyway, dimly lit by a flickering streetlight. A young woman runs desperately, her breath ragged, her face twisted in panic. She looks back. Something is chasing her. Her footsteps quicken. The tension mounts. Suddenly, a figure drops from above, slamming onto the ground before her. The camera shakes. She stumbles back and screams. The silhouette that rises is impossible to define precisely. It's Peter, or what's left of him. His skin looks gelatinous, almost translucent, with no trace of an exoskeleton. From his back, bony limbs twitch violently, and his breathing hisses like a trapped animal. The creature roars, a guttural sound filled with fury and pain, and pounces on the girl, devouring her within seconds. This is his final form, the ultimate fusion of man and spider. Pure despair made flesh. With that brutal sequence, the short film reaches its end. But it leaves behind a question with no easy answer. At what point does a hero stop being human? And when the story fades to black, the analysis begins. Andrew Shun, also known as Locust Garden, displays an astonishing mastery of symbolic horror. From the very first minutes, he pays tribute to multiple sources that shape this visual nightmare. Sam Raimi's original trilogy is present in every frame. The opening credits, the almost theatrical tone of the transformation, the slick, viscous texture of terror. Everything evokes Tobey Maguire's universe, but seen through a warped, diseased mirror where heroism rots from within. There's also a clear influence from Earth vs. the Spider, directed by Stan Winston. In that cult film, a young man injects himself with an experimental serum and his body mutates into an arachnid abomination. Shin takes that concept and pushes it further. The gradual loss of humanity, the teeth falling out, the fangs emerging, the multiplying eyes, and the limbs sprouting like branches from a biological hell. Another undeniable nod comes from Patton Parnell, a cannibalistic, psychotic version of Spider-Man from the Spider-Verse comics. As in the short, Parnell devours his own uncle, twisting the iconic motto into something grotesque. With great power comes great hunger. Finally, the monster's final design, especially in the post-credits scene, directly connects to Man-Spider, the most terrifying version of Peter Parker seen in the classic comics and the 90s animated series. That figure embodies the hero's darkest nightmare, to lose his mind, his morality, and his soul. Andrew Shun's short film isn't just a horror story. It's a macabre elegy on the corruption of power, a love letter to Cronenberg's body horror, Raimi's grotesque aesthetic, and the dark myth of a hero consumed by himself. In the end, Spider-Man, the short horror doesn't show us a villain. It shows us a martyr of instinct, a hero devoured by biology and fate. Because in Shun's universe, power doesn't redeem, power consumes.